In 2026, it's going to be a complicated year for insurance renewals for social service organizations. It's going to vary a lot based on the type of work you do, how many vehicles you have, how much payroll you have. And in this video, I'm going to break it down line by line to help you know what to expect and also prep for your renewal so that you're getting the best deal for your insurance. Let's get into it. Okay, I'm sharing my screen with my notes for each line of coverage for social service organizations. And this is a broad term. I understand that, affordable housing is one thing. Group homes for the intellectually and developmentally disabled is another thing. Home health is another thing. What your renewal is going to look like is going to vary a lot based on how many buildings you have, how many vehicles you have, how much payroll you have, type of work you're doing. So what I'm going to do is help you understand what's happening in each line of coverage so that you can prepare for it. So the property insurance marketplace is finally starting to stabilize. Thank God. It's been a tough 5 years for property insurance. Basically, since COVID happened, there was a huge increase in the cost of building materials and the cost of labor, and that made property values shoot up by 30 to 50%. Insurance companies are finally starting to feel like they've got their arms around the issue. They've increased building values and they feel like they've got a better sense on how much it's going to cost to repair things. And so they're tentatively saying, we don't have to take as much rate. That's great. Now, for you as a buyer, if you own buildings and you haven't reviewed your building values recently, you need to do that because there's a lot of people out there that are underinsured by 30 to 50% because they haven't updated their building values in the last 5 years. So if you're a group home, if you run affordable housing, if you have office buildings, take a look at your building values, make sure they're up to date. Keep in mind that cost per square foot in a lot of situations should be at least $250 a square foot. So if you're not there, you need to pay attention. On the liability insurance side, this is going to vary a lot based on the type of work that you do. Here's the thing that you need to understand about the legal climate in America. There's more lawsuits and they're bigger. And the types of lawsuits that get really big happen with lack of care and abuse and molestation and products and vehicles. And so social services, they provide care, they get accused for abuse and molestation, they drive a lot of vehicles. And it's going to impact you at your renewal. So you got to know that for abuse and molestation and for professional liability insurance, companies are going to want to see that you have the right documentation in place to protect you in court. If you do not have written policies and procedures about how to prevent abuse, identify abuse, and report abuse, you need to do that. Insurance companies will give you samples. So leverage that. If you haven't looked at it recently, make sure you're doing it because those policies and procedures are your sword and shield in court. If you're going into court and you don't have those written policies and procedures, you're going to kind of be naked. Now, it's even worse if you don't follow the written document, but you got to make sure you have the written document. Also, keep in mind that every company is going to have a different definition about what is considered higher risk, right? Some companies are going to say, we really don't want to do anything where people go into somebody's home. Others are going to say, we're not really concerned about that. Others are going to say, we really don't want residential operations. And some are going to say, no problem. And some are going to say, we really don't want substance use disorder programs. And some are going to say, we're okay with it. We know how to underwrite that. So you're going to have to make sure that you're with a company that knows what you're doing and is good with you. The best way to know that is to have a broker that knows the marketplace and can tell you who's doing what. On the auto insurance side, this could be a pain point. You should be expecting 8 to 15%, even if you've had no claims and you've done a good job. And this is just because insurance companies have made no money on auto insurance for 13 years. Basically, ever since the iPhone came out, it's gotten worse and worse and worse and worse. And in the last couple of years, part of what's happening is cars get more expensive to repair. There's more electronics. You get an fender bender, and now you got cameras in the rear bumper. So those things are more expensive to repair. There's a shortage of car mechanics, which means they spend more time in the shop. And on top of that, there's more lawsuits. So I talked about how one of the places where there's huge lawsuits has to do with auto insurance. Think about what you're doing on the social service side. If you're running a group home, if you're running a home health agency, if you could be transporting people. And if you've got 7 to 10 people in a van and that van rolls, oh my gosh, it's so easy to get a large accident. And in some social service organizations, I think specifically on the substance use disorder side, the people in those programs, they may not know how to keep their life together, but they sure know how to hire an attorney. So you get an offender bender, and everybody's fine in the moment, but then a week later, all the people you're taking care of in the car, they all have neck injuries. Seen it so many times. So here's the deal. With auto insurance, you need to make sure you're doing a great job screening your drivers. You really can't be very flexible on this because it's one of the places where you are at most risk in your operation. You need to be training your people and use telematics in your operation. This technology is more and more available. Let me tell you what it is. It's those units that you put in your car that tell you how fast the car is going, where it is, hard brakes, hard accelerations, basically all the behavioral issues that will lead to a claim, right? Before somebody gets in an accident, they have a lead foot. They drive too fast, trying to get off the line and beat the person next to them. They're cutting people off. They're going places they shouldn't. Manage those behaviors and you'll have less accidents. You're still going to have to pay more at renewal because that's what's going on, but you will pay less than your peers. And that's the game. We're trying to beat everybody else by having less claims than them so we get the best available deal in the marketplace. Now, on your workers' compensation insurance, insurance companies have made a ton of money on workers' comp, which means if you haven't had claims, your workers' comp should be flat or better. That's what I'm thinking. And especially with everything that's going on your liability and auto insurance, I think you should be using your workers' comp to try and offset what's going to happen to you on some of those other lines of business to keep your total cost of insurance down. Some things that you should want to be able to present to the insurance company: have an employee safety plan, have a return to work plan. Basically, have a plan to keep your people safe and to get them back to work if they get hurt. If you if you're trying to differentiate yourself from the other businesses that have had no claims, the business has got a plan to keep people safe and get them back to work so that the insurance companies pay less for lost wages. They're going to differentiate themselves versus these people. And that's the deal. You're trying to look better than your peers here. So if you can do that, it's going to help. Now, on your umbrella insurance, this is one of the most challenging marketplaces this year. And it's for reasons that I've already kind of talked about. There's more lawsuits, there's companies investing in lawsuits. Juries don't like institutions. They're settling out at larger numbers, and they're doing it on abuse and molestation claims, lack of care claims, product claims, and auto claims. So it's a bad cocktail for social service organizations. What this means is that if you have more than $10 million in umbrella insurance, companies are probably going to want to cut that back a little bit. They even if you have 10, they may want to offer less. They're not going to love giving you more coverage for abuse and molestation liability insurance. Everybody is going to try to cap that number because there's been so many claims for accusations of abuse, and you probably know the stories even better than I do. So just be aware of that may be coming. And they may try and do it on your professional liability as well. Is everybody's trying to manage how much total exposure they've got out there in these umbrella policies. Their companies will do it if they feel like they're going to lose an account. They'll do it for their most special accounts, but they're going to be stingy here. The best way you can get what you want is make sure you're bundling umbrella with as much as you can and position yourself as the best available risk, and also create some competition if you need to. That's the way you're going to get a company to bend here. And on the cyber insurance, you you should be looking at this. If you don't have cyber insurance, you should be paying attention to it because you probably have a lot of personal information. You got donor roles. You may have you may have health information for people in your program, which means you got a pretty high risk. And on top of that, threat actors are targeting small to medium sized organizations more and more. They're using AI to send out these phishing emails in volume in ways that they never could before. And they're finding ways to try and fool you into sending money to places where you shouldn't. These are all happening more and more, and AI is not helping, but you just have to be aware that that's happening. Now, that said, if you have good controls, let's say you have a managed IT service that you work with that helps you set up security and your people know how to identify these things, your renewal should be flat. And if you haven't looked at it in a while, you may be able to create some competition and get your costs down on this line. And for you as an organization, I think you have to be looking at your workers' comp and cyber as ways to maybe offset some of the increases you're going to experience on the liability, auto, and umbrella. Hey, if you want to know anything more about any of these individual lines of coverage, I made videos for all of them. Check them out. The liability insurance report, the workers' comp, umbrella, auto, it's all there. If you want to talk to me about your renewal, my contact information is going to be in the description. It's also in the YouTube channel. If this was helpful, hit like and subscribe. It helps other people like you find the content. And as always, thank you so much for watching. And please go build something great.